Yes, for sure. And thank you very much, Edith, for the intro and for having me on the call as well. Um, so as Edith mentioned, African Impact Initiative, we're an organization that started with the mission of impacting the continents through the African youth. So we strongly believe that, we shouldn't have to wait till we get older to make changes to our communities. And that's really what, drove our members to get started in terms of launching the organization. So we started in little over 3 years now, end of 2016 slash early 2017. The picture you see there, that's the founding team. So that's myself at the extreme right, with my co-founders. And like I said, we started because we just believe it's never too early to make a difference. I myself, I went to school, like I grew up back home. So my primary education and my secondary education was in Nigeria. So coming to Canada and coming to the University of Toronto, I noticed there were a lot of African students, a big African community, and we would have all these conversations. I'm sure many of you have them or had them as well, where we talked about home. We saw where we were living and we saw things functioning, and we were, thinking we need to do better, back home. But then all we were doing was talking and talking and talking and no action. So we were like, well, let's do something about it. So that's really why we started the organization. The picture on the left side of the screen, so that's our first event at U of T. So we started doing our projects in Canada because we were students at the time. So that was our first conference in 2017. The picture on the right is our student team right now. So that picture was from, I think, last month, where we recruited a new bunch of students to our Canada team. So what we do in Canada, we help African youth in Canada to find career opportunities. We also help them to get skills and employability skills, because it's a different struggle, like being an African immigrant and coming to this part of the world. So there's a big need for intentionally engaging corporations, intentionally engaging organizations to get our African students placed. So it's a lot of skill building, skill development, and also we engage the sectors of African leaders in Canada for conferences. But we also wanted to do stuff back home, which was actually why we started in the first place. So at the time when I graduated from university, along with my team members, my co-founding team, we had some more time on our hands. So we decided to recruit a new team to do what we were doing in Canada, and then take on, tackling projects back home. So this was the first project we did back home. It was done in southern Nigeria, so that's where I'm from. So naturally, the first choice was in Nigeria. We did a lot of research and we evaluated the areas that we could make the most impact. And at that time, in terms of the projects we looked at, healthcare was the biggest need. This community is the community in Akwa Ibom, that's the name of the state. Essentially, they had a situation whereby this particular village was very far from any healthcare facility. They had no access to quality healthcare. We did some research in their region and saw that a lot of the kids that were given birth to, they were dying like at the stage of being born, because there was no, access to quality facilities. We also saw that they had a lot of challenges with blood pressure related stuff because they had no education around that. So this project was in an effort to solve those things. We were able to fundraise close to a million naira in my country's currency. And we essentially helped them rebuild or to build a new hospital in that community. We were able to engage with some of the trained nurses and doctors, and the funds we raised essentially were used to buy everything that stood up the hospital. So it was very heartwarming, very touching. We got them to come out. So those are the mothers in the community. And, it was the first time we were able to actually make an impact, which was great. In the next slide, you will see we also signed an agreement with the hospital where we agreed essentially that everything we were donating was going to be tracked. Everything we were going to be giving them was going to be used for the specific purposes of the agreement. Because we were still based in Canada or the US, so we're going back home, or sorry, back to work. But we needed to keep this going. And we soon went to find that this was, I guess, a short-sighted approach of solving problems. You know, just raising money, charity, donations, going in and helping them. As much as it was great and as much as there was actually a lot of good feedback that came from it, when we came back, it was hard to keep it going. It was hard to make it sustainable because we were not there. So this project ended up, like, we partnered with an NGO on ground and they've been seeing it through. But then we figured that this wasn't a scalable way of solving problems back home. And this was what led us to our current approach, which we're taking now. And just summarizing the slide is some of the lessons we learned. So first, the best way to learn is by taking action, by doing. So we wouldn't have learned anything if we just, sat down and talked about the problems we had without fixing them. Secondly, never have a fixed plan. So always be ready to adapt, which is what we did. And how we were able to adapt was by looking at things from the perspective of those who were trying to serve. And the last point there is, the whole give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him to fish and you feed him for his lifetime. So we needed to teach the people or empower the people we're trying to help So this led us to what we're trying to do right now, which is called, initially, the goal of the challenge is to empower African youth living in these communities to actually have the tools, the capital, the resources to fix their problems. And we're going with an approach or a focus on technology-enabled solutions. So essentially, solutions that are, built or enabled with technology and actually used by the target communities with technology. And the goal is to do this in 5 different countries by 2025. So we started with Ghana this year. So like Edith mentioned, Arielle For Africa is actually one of our partners for this year in helping the students. Those are some of the students we're working with in Ghana. And we raised a fund of 100,000 Canadian dollars from the University of Toronto. So they've been our biggest partner since we started. And they've been very helpful in, helping us see our mission. And essentially, this fund is what's going to be used to kickstart these ideas, focusing on ideas that are from stage 0, just an idea. You have done nothing about it. You just, you have this problem you've seen in your community that you want to solve. So what we're trying to do with the challenge is to birth these ideas. Obviously, working with larger scale investors after they've built their MVPs to scale. So that's where we are today. And in terms of what the future holds, we plan to expand the challenge to different African countries. So Kenya would be our next location, hopefully, with the help of Arielle, which has a big presence there. But after Kenya, we want to go even further. We want to go, to South Africa, to Uganda, Rwanda. So by 2025, based on need, based on the volume of, requests or interest we see in these types of solutions, we would be in 5 countries. We also want to increase our fund because we found that obviously to get them off the ground, it's not as fund intensive, but to scale, it's way more fund intensive. So we're looking for partners in our fund. We have a great deal with U of T where they match whatever we're able to raise. So, that incentivizes partners as well, or incentivizes us to bring in partners to our fund. So anyone listening on the call who, is an investor, social impact investor, please feel free to reach out to us after if you want to talk. And please do follow us on social media. So our Twitter, Instagram, and our website is there. On our website, you can sign up to receive our newsletters so you can be aware of opportunities coming up. But thank you so much for having me, Edith, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have on our organization.
Perfect. I think what I would ask is, has it been easy? Especially for you guys, you're very much donation based. Has that journey been easy? Or are you guys just lucky? I think for us, we want to understand, what has it been like?
So it certainly hasn't been easy. I think at the very beginning, crowdfunding, as some of you would know, it's very based on what you get, right? Like you're banking on people to believe in your vision or your mission or your cause. So that bit wasn't easy at all, and honestly, it's the grace of God. But I think one thing that helped us was being able to really connect with people who believed in what we were trying to do. So I started this myself, literally, like myself in my room. And as time has passed, I was able to find people who came on board, so my co-founders, because they believed in the cause. And even more so as we scaled beyond like our work in Canada, it's all about connecting with people that like, you know, believe in what you're trying to do. So how I even got connected with you, Edith, was after I spoke with the guys over at, what's that company called? I forget, the investment company that I reached out to at first, right? And then they connected us. So it's all been about just connecting with people who believe in the same values. I think that's
yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for that. Guys, again, if you have any questions, pop them into the Q&A box, right? So that we don't have a lot coming at the end and then it's harder for us to project those. So you guys have met Efosa. You've seen the amazing work that he's doing. He's shared his journey. Next, we have Isaac. Isaac, are you still there? Are you with us? So Isaac is actually a really amazing person. Isaac is currently co-founder of Ghana Startup Network. And Ghana Startup Network essentially does similar to what Arielle does, but in the Ghana market. And for him, it's around building community, supporting the members that join their network. And basically, he's a very talkative person and very much research based, at least from my experience. Isaac, are you there? I think you can see you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I am there. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Perfect. I can hear
sorry,
you.
I had to join a little late because unfortunately our lights went out. So I had to quickly get somewhere where there's internet connection and light.
Africa problems. It's fine. You know the hustle. Yeah. You know what it's like. No one's gonna judge. We understand. Welcome, Isaac. I am so excited to have you here. I think we're just going to start off with essentially what you guys are doing, right? So we're your partners, so we know exactly what you're doing. I think now my question is basically, what is your vision, right? What do you want to see happen in the African continent as a result of supporting entrepreneurs? We know that entrepreneurs in Africa have a lot more challenges than the rest of the world does. And their journeys are quite, like, there's a lot of hurdles that they have to face. So essentially, what is the vision? What do you want to see happen in the continent? And then what are you doing to get there?
Okay. I would like to take it from perspective, as a personal perspective, as an individual, and Ghana Startup Network as well as other things. So I think as an individual, when you are growing up in Africa, you just see limitless potential go unused. It's almost a story that is told every time. Like you grow up with these amazing people, and somehow you just see them fleeting from their potential, and perhaps you would think at a young age that if these people got the opportunity, they would be the people that go to Oxford and Harvard and all of that, probably become the people that change the world, but that is not the case. And we see that also, like, entrepreneurship, as I see it, is not something that people have the option not to choose, right? It's basically forced upon them, because we are talking about a youth population that has about 60% of them being unemployed. They graduate out of school, and what they do is that they have to find a living for themselves. They start selling, they start doing small things. So there was a research that came out last year, especially in Ghana, that Ghanaian women entrepreneurs are some of the most successful I should say, because what happens most often than not is that people know nothing about businesses. They just go into it and they don't have the skills. They don't know how to write a business plan. They don't know how to segment their market. They don't know how to approach a go-to-market strategy. They don't know how to use digitization tools to, get customers and all of that. So we think from our perspective that there's a lot more that can be done there, because eventually people don't choose entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship chooses them because of the hardship. And if only we can increase the rate of success of these small businesses at least, then we know that as a continent, we are more resilient towards some of the biggest problems that we have, like poverty. And what we do at Ghana Startup Network is that we found that there are a lot of communities in Ghana trying to help young startup entrepreneurs, but we don't find a uniformity in the voice, right? So we don't find that people are trying to come together across ecosystems to present government policy, for instance, to make sure that there is incentives for young entrepreneurs when they are starting, to make sure that if we present ourselves as a unique youth voice to the government, for example, we would benefit from that collective voice, right? And we want to make sure that that happens. So our work is around that. Our work is with entrepreneurs, but our work is also with ecosystem stakeholders. So we have been trying as much as possible to the small event that we organize to get all these young ecosystem leaders to come together. And then we have conversations. We are already starting research that involves multi-stakeholders. And gradually we want to get to a place where we form a uniform voice for Ghana startup ecosystem in Ghana. And that would be able to attract the attention that we deserve as young entrepreneurs, and Africa and our government takes it seriously. And to segue a little bit from my personal vision, I think that Africa has a lot of potential. I've been involved in a lot of things. I think some of the potential that's hugely underestimated in Africa, agriculture, it's also because venture capital, as we see it, obviously is not very good fit for things like agriculture. I mean, investors want 10x in technology companies and all of that, but we see that there's a lot of potential in agriculture, for example, because about 70% of all crop yield goes to waste because of mismanagement, amongst other things. And one of the most passionate things I am about in Africa, and I think it affects entrepreneurship, affects our way of life, is mental health. The fact that I like to ask people when I speak to mental health, like, how do you call depression in your local language? How do you call anxiety in your local language? Probably doesn't have a name, because we have relegated all these very important aspects of our health to a non-existence, but things like that we don't even have a name for it, because we feel like, oh, Africans, we are too resilient and all of that. But in fact, we are not. We are human beings, and we experience some of these things in reality. And all the research that is coming around COVID-19 and the surge in people having mental health, Africa is not beyond that. So I think that as much as we look at global health and all of that, so I mean, we are trying to also encourage health startups that will come up with innovative ideas to come and combat some of these issues. And while we look at global health as a whole, and we look at diseases that we think can kill people, there are a lot of silent killers that are killing people, mental health. And it affects entrepreneurs a lot too, because as entrepreneurs, we are the people that go through recurrent cycles of failure, right? And there are nothing existing platform for us to do that. So I think conclusively, yeah, that is it for me as an individual and for us organic. I don't know if I made any sense.
I love it. I told you guys, Isaac can talk the whole day for us here. I love it. I think also in terms of everything that you guys have done with your team and even everything that we're also trying to do together, do you think that being an African makes it harder?
Obviously, because we don't have a Silicon Valley in Africa. We don't have a VC base in Africa. We live in very unstable internet connectivity, electricity areas. We have the problems of our governments having political insecurity, instability, and they all match when it comes to building enterprises, right?
Yeah.
So I think that obviously Africa doesn't have it as other people have, but as entrepreneurs, the burden is on us to see how we can look at those problems and churn out solutions out of it. So as much as it's difficult from our perspective as Africans to build businesses, and that is true, there are, Village Capital, I think 2 years ago, I was talking to you about this, they released this document about how a lot of African-funded companies, the African-funded companies usually have a white person on the board, or a couple of white as co-founders and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are all these underlying problems that exist, but Africans, we should try and see beyond it. And because as much as I think there's a funding problem and all these other issues, I think that it's still possible because we're seeing, for example, in Ghana, one Spotlight Health startup is M-Pharma that is doing a lot of great things. Other great startups that are coming from the continent, I think that there's a lot of potential, but yeah, there are problems that we face that other people don't face.
That's true. That's true. And we're actually saying it because we're saying it's very unfortunate. Just like even in our journey towards funds and things like that, you speak to fellow Africans and they tell you there's no white person that's a co-founder, and you say no, and they're like, then it's not going to happen, and it's unfortunate because where you should be getting support, you're not getting support. And then when you try and fundraise abroad, you say the word, you haven't even finished Africa, and they're like, yep, out, we're done. Yeah, no one's going to listen to you, or rather very few do. So I think now my final question is just, I think basically around the challenges that entrepreneurs face and just the issues that they face. Do you believe that they are the answer to all these challenges that are in the continent, that are in the economies, be it financial, economical, political, whatever it is?
I think that, I don't know if conclusively you can say entrepreneurship is the solution to all this, right? It's just a little much of a stretch because obviously there are diversity in solutions, right? But I think that entrepreneurial mindset is critical. At least entrepreneurial mindset is critical to every solution that you solve, right? Because kind of backlog of failures that entrepreneurs have to go through to eventually have success is that kind of mentality that we want to teach every kid on the African continent, because obviously they are going to face it. Even though they don't start businesses, in some form, in their jobs, in their workplaces, in their families, they need that kind of resilience to go through that. So entrepreneurial minds are very key. But obviously also, I think that startups and building of companies is very crucial to the economic development of the continent because we need jobs.
Yeah.
We need jobs.
Yeah.
Right. One of the key things that is going to transform the African continent is that our human resources is put to use.
Yeah.
And that is not going to happen if no businesses are formed. So obviously, we startup entrepreneurs, they form a very big part. I would say a majority of our success in Africa is going to be dependent on how much we are able to churn out companies that will eventually employ and use the abilities of young people on the continent.
For sure. I love this. Thank you so much, Isaac. I'm sure that questions will come in and then we'll come back to this. Guys, if you have any questions, like I said, put it into the chat box. I see some of you are raising hands. If you raise a hand, you are not helping yourself. You need to literally type in the questions just to avoid interjecting people. So we're going to go to Kamutima right now, Tomoya Bazi. So I think something happened and we skipped a bit fast, Feruz. We need to get to
Edith, it's first Pearl.
Okay. So apparently it's Pearl. So Pearl is works for AHL Ventures, and so she's an investment associate. She's really an amazing Kenyan. I think it's important that we say that she's a Kenyan. She actually got her MSc in finance from Cambridge, so that's amazing. And as a fellow Kenyan woman, I know things like that are not easy. She has a bunch of certifications that I will not go into, but guys, Pearl is a heavyweight in everything that she does. So we absolutely love Pearl at Arielle For Africa. So Pearl, I think I'm going to leave it here for you to take it away, my dear. And she has literally a presentation for us just because we realized that it's important that we talk about revenue models. It's important that we talk about how to assess social impact and everything that goes into that. So Pearl, my dear, take it away.
Thank you, Edith, and thank you, Arielle for Africa, for organizing this. I'm excited to be part of this. And thank you for the nice introduction. Yeah. So let's go straight to the agenda. Yeah, so today we're going to look at the next slide, which talks about the agenda. The first thing we want to look at is who AHL Venture Partners is, just an introduction, and then how we view impact, and then how we measure impact as an impact investor. So next slide actually talks about who we are. And AHL Venture Partners, as Edith mentioned, we are an impact investor in Africa. We're one of the first impact investors in Africa. And we focus on a few sectors. They're mentioned on the screen. And at the end of the day, what we want to see is both a financial return and, of course, a positive social, environmental, and gender impact through the investments that we make. And we make the investments through a variety of instruments. So you can see that on the screen. We've done debt, we've done equity, and also funds. And also the ticket sizes we've done are also mentioned on the screen. And our mission is really to invest in innovative and scalable businesses in Africa that are able to bring about that impact that I've talked about. So I'll move on to the next screen, where I just wanted to show you an example of some of the portfolio companies that we've invested in across the three sectors. So the three sectors are food and agriculture, the first column, and then energy access and financial inclusion. So hopefully you can recognize at least one or two companies. I think I managed to put one from Ghana, but then most of them are from Kenya, and then we have Ethiopia as well, and Uganda. So hopefully you can, and Zambia. Hopefully you can recognize at least one. I just wanted to highlight Twiga, which we invested less than $1 million, and it has grown right now. And last year they were able to raise about $30 million from bigger investors. So we're very proud of that. And so I just want to move on to the next slide, where I'll be talking about our theory of change. And basically our theory of change, what a theory of change is really trying to articulate how we want to achieve our impact. So what activities are we going to do? That's the first column. So it's the kind of investments in the different sectors. And then what outputs and outcomes do we expect, and how that is aligned to the SDGs, because for us, impact has to be aligned to the SDGs. So in the middle, that's what I want to focus on, is the outputs and outcomes. What do we want to focus? What do we want to achieve? So jobs created, that's number one. I think everyone is going to talk about that today. So that has to happen through every investment we make. But then there are others that are specific now to the sectors that we invest in. So for example, in food and agriculture, we're talking about we want to see an increase in yield and lower losses after harvest, for example, and increased farmer access to the services that they need in that sector. So that's just a summary of that. Then maybe if I move to the SDGs, you can see that there's a common thread amongst all the SDGs. Sorry, yeah, that's that slide. There's a common thread amongst all the sectors. So we have to do no poverty and gender equality. And so let's move on to the next slide, where I talk about our gender approach. So apart from being impact focused, we really like to call ourselves as a gender smart investor. So we employ interventions to make sure that through our investments, there is increased participation of women in the economy. And how do we do that? First of all, within our team internally at AHL, we make sure that we are a balanced investment team, basically at least 50-50 gender, but at the moment 50-50 female versus male. At the moment, we're actually more females, which is quite exciting. I think there are very few investment teams which are like that. So that's internally. And then on the portfolio side, we try to ensure that on the three levels that are on the screen, that we focus on women. So we try to invest in companies that are led or owned by women, number one. And then the second one is companies where women actually form a great percentage of people on the boards or in senior management or in the supply chain. And last but not least, women actually benefit from the services or goods that a company is producing. And so if we move on to the next slide, I want to talk about basically how we measure and manage impact as impact investors. So impact is really at the core of what we do. If I can just go back, if I can just recap, it's not like we are not interested in financial returns. We are interested in financial returns, and we want a model that works. We want a scalable business. We want a business that can grow and capture a lot of the market share and basically all that other people want in terms of returns. But we also want impact to be created, and so how we do it is just what is on the screen right now, through the various sources of the investment. So even before we invest, we want to see that you as the entrepreneur has thought about the impact that you're going to create and you've articulated it. If you're not able to do that, we can also help you to do that if you can see that there's actually impact. And then through the legals, when we're negotiating the legals, we also ask the entrepreneur to ensure that during the course of our investment, they will provide us with the information that we need in relation to impact. And then afterwards, we keep collecting the information, and every year we actually publish an annual report that shows our impact metrics. So that's just the process in general. I'll move on to the next slide, where I think I'm telling you about what are these metrics. So how do we actually measure impact? What do we mean by impact exactly? So in every year we collect this data from our portfolio companies, and on the screen you can see the various metrics. There's jobs created, that's number one, it has to be there. And on jobs created, we also want to know what's the percentage of females that have gotten the jobs, and also what's the percentage of the jobs that are actually full-time and which ones are actually not full-time, for example. And then there's individuals access. How many individuals, for example, if it's farmers, how many farmers have been able to access, maybe if it's crop testing, soil testing services or advice, that kind of thing. And then there's one I'd like to highlight, which is the capital leveraged. Because we are early stage impact investors, we believe that we come in early into a company, and because of our early investment, we are able to catalyze or to mobilize other investors to come in later. They kind of find the business more attractive if there's already other investors inside. So we want to track along the way how much capital has been raised because of us coming in. And then there's the rest which are on the screen. I don't know if there's any that I need to go into. So in all of them, we try to see what's the percentage of females, basically. Benefit suppliers, we try to see that. And of course, the financial snapshot, as I told you, it's not like it's not important, it's important for us. We need to track the revenues, we need to track the EBITDA and other metrics. So I think I am done with my presentation. So you can find my contacts on the screen. I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have in regards to impact measurement later on. So thank you.
Thank you, Pearl. Thank you so much, so much. Pearl is honestly amazing, and I love what AHL Ventures has been able to do for companies in Kenya, in Uganda, in a lot of African countries. I think there are about 10 or so. So it's really amazing to hear that there's almost a source for Africans to set up social impact and social enterprises and things like that. Next, I'm going to go to Alex. Now, guys, I must give a warning. Alex is I call him brutal, but Alex is part of the Arielle family, basically, and I think right now he's advanced. No, we're going to play between the two of us, but that's fine. We have an understanding. He's not going to be too savage with me. So Alex is pretty great. Alex is. Actually, we met at while doing our masters together. He holds an MSc in disruptive innovation, and then we met while we were both doing international business at HALT. And he is an impact investor, which I think is quite amazing because he is a young person. So I think that's like the first kudos. And he actually has a focus on sub-Saharan Africa as well as Central America. And for him, it's around things like grants, around things like impact investing, around angel investing. And generally, we just celebrate everything that he has done so far in the continent. So he'll talk about some of the companies that he has invested in and just what it's been like for him. So Alex, tell us what you do right? How you're involved in impact investing and the sort of
Yes.
companies that you've supported.
So I already apologize for my internet, and I apologize I will not be as inspirational as all the other speakers. But yes, I work for my own family office. I'm an analyst at One Life AG, which is a Swiss-based family office. We have been investing in Africa for roughly over a decade now. We have invested in companies like the One Acre Fund, Mkapa Solar, and quite a few others, which I'm sure you guys know them. And we divide our impact work, or anyway, just investing in primarily two areas. We do our philanthropic work, so just grants, and the other side we do impact investing, and then the usual other part of our portfolio management. In terms of our themes that we invest in, they're very, very simple. We base ourselves on the Maslow pyramid, so the famous pyramid with the basic needs that everyone knows and you have to study from elementary school. And so what we do is we work on employment, poor people and sustainable development, protection of flora and fauna, cultural and artistic heritage, and scholarships. So anything that kind of tries to increase the wellness of a community and of a local economy. Therefore, what we try to do is try to impact and wellness, which is quite a complicated work to do. But I do.
Okay, perfect. I told you guys, Alex anyway, it's gonna be interesting. So now I have a problem, Alex, because founders that I speak to, founders that I spend time with, I am a founder, and the question is the same: where is the money? I don't know where the money is. Where is the money?
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Where's the money?
Yeah.
Well, here I am. Hi. So, well, I think there is always a big misconception is where is the money is people expect the money to come to them. Whereas you have a startup, you're an entrepreneur, you have to go get it. I'm not coming your way, you approach me. Simply for the fact that if I started to go around and look for investments, there's so many investments out, I could just die one day in a conference somewhere. So at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneur's job, where it's in Africa, Asia, or whatever. Just Google, know your target audience, know your target investor, have your all your investment documentation correct, make sure that you have your contact details. This is always something that I say when I do my workshop at Arielle, that remember to put your contact details. You have no idea how many teasers and investment and pitch decks I get that do not even have the name of the person or an email or an address. So you would like to invest in them and you cannot. So make sure you have everything in order, and just, majority of these investment funds or family offices like we do, they actually say what they want. They say how they analyze, they say how they look at stuff. And at the end of the day, what we look at is, like everyone else, something a bit more complex of team, timing, technology, traction, and the impact. So at the end of the day, 90% of the startups fail. Majority of those deserve to fail, to be honest. But the other ones is just because they didn't take the leap of faith or just the extra step of getting hungry and looking for that money. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna start analyzing something once I have the proper documentation in front of me, and then my work starts.
I love this because it's so interesting to see Pearl. Pearl has been laughing the whole time you've been talking. She can relate to everything you're saying. Okay, so now the other thing that we've said, though, is that there are actually investors that are wondering where these social enterprises, where these companies. So it's almost like a gap that exists. Why does that gap exist?
That gap, primarily the reason is that, again, people not willing either to take the extra step, or people tend to be too personally or emotionally attached to their companies, so they're not willing to negotiate or come halfway. You have to remember, grants is one thing. It's like a donation. I give the money, it's gone. But when you're investing, you're taking equity. I'm becoming a partner. I'm not. It's like marriage. You're not getting out of it. So what is important is that people that approach it or anyway come halfway, because I'm a professional investor. What I'm doing, I'm not there to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. I know how to guide you and coach you to go in the right direction. But unless there is the awful position that we really do not understand each other. But generally what I invest, therefore people needs to be able to negotiate a way that is good for me and is good for them.
Perfect. Next thing, guys, Alex is on holiday, so he's literally calling in from a yacht. That's how loyal he is to Arielle. So why why do you invest in the social impact space? Like, what is the reason? You know, is it to sleep a little bit better? You know, like, what's the reason?
It always comes back to, yes, you do sleep better at night. That's very true. But also the fact that I have been blessed and I have the luck to come from a family that is very comfortable. Therefore, if I have to invest between company A and company B, and one pollutes and destroys the world, and the other one actually improves everyone's well-being, why on earth should I invest in the other one? It's not making me much richer. It's not making me that much poorer if the money goes away. So I might as well in something that does some people some good.
I love that. Okay, so then why Africa? Because you have special interest in Africa. So why
Africa? I love the people. No, I mean, it's, 1.2 billion people, one largest continent and everything. Most countries are quite advanced and have a relatively good level in terms of emerging markets that you can get into. They have incredible amount of resources, and the countries that are poor and they need to be developed, they are not that far away from becoming emerging markets. You do always, as we were talking before, the problem with the government. So as many other investors I've met, as soon as there is a problem with the government, I'm out. But also this is where I have a leverage, because with governments, when we invest as a family office, we do not have a time horizon of 10 years like some funds. We can stay there 20, 30 years. We have no problem, and we can invest in multiple companies. Therefore, when we're there, we can just say to the government, look, you push us, we're out. And I'm from Switzerland. That means it's a very small country. That means if I go out,
oh my gosh.
It's but sometimes you have to really how you say, put people against the wall and kind of get your way through. But generally, the government's the only real problem. Startups can be as good as they are in the US as they can be in Africa, and generally, from what I've experienced, people in Africa tend to be more professional, more trustworthy, more capable, and they work 10 times harder than anyone else because they want to get it done, and they have that impact ambition that is missing quite everywhere apart from
I love this. Okay, thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. I think now our final panelist that we're going to hear from is Tomoya Bazi. So Tomoya Bazi, honestly, is quite amazing. If there's anyone in the agricultural sector, you are going to love Tomoya Bazi. So Tomoya Bazi, we actually met him a few months ago when we were just talking about how Arielle can support their entrepreneurs and how they can also support Arielle agricultural entrepreneurs. So he does come from a farming background, right? So he's a farmer who is supporting other farmers. And what he's basically done is he's mobilized fellow farmers, and they have created a network where they encourage other young people to get into the farming space. He's part of the 19 Uganda's most high achieving agricultural leaders, which is honestly amazing. I had to cut off some of his like titles just because I was like, this is amazing, everything that he has done, even being acknowledged by Museveni, who is very strict. So I don't think he acknowledges a lot of people. And basically has done a lot generally for the Ministry of Agriculture. What he does with Young Farmers Champion Network is about dealing with about 300 farmers, supporting them per year. He'll talk about it more, but they have both at the local as well as at the national level, and they rank these farmers, and they're able to get different sort of levels of support. And yes, so Tomoya Bazi is here with us. Welcome, Tomoya Bazi. His name is very interesting, right? So you guys need to catch how I'm saying it. So tell us about Yofchan, right? And what you guys have been able to do in Uganda.
Thank you, Edith, for the great introduction. And I'm glad to be part of this conversation. Hope everyone is doing well. Yeah, Young Farmers Champions Network was started by a group of young farmers who were facing a lot of challenges along the agriculture value chain. So we could go into workshops, complain about nothing being done to support young farmers and all that stuff. So as a group of visionary young people, we realized that we needed to take up the space and address the problems ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we came up with ideas, this and that, and finally we realized we have seen the challenges, we have got into spaces, at least we have some ideas of what can work. Mm-hmm. So we decided to create the Champions Network to be a vehicle where we inspire and attract other young farmers into farming as a business. So when we started this organization, basically we were looking at advocacy. We were looking at representing young people at national level, influencing policies, having young farmers' voices heard, and creating for space for young farmers to even air out their issues. Yeah, but along the way, young people kept on asking, yes, it's good, we are into spaces, we are advocating and all that, but the challenges still remain. Young farmers could find it hard to access financing for increasing agricultural production. They would also find it hard to get the necessary skills for them to do to practice farming as a business. So we realized that actually, in addition to advocacy, we needed to pivot our model around agricultural financing and skilling young farmers in Uganda. So, and of course, the challenges of market were also alarming, and young farmers were talking about access to sustainable and better markets, which was, of course, a challenge caused by issues of farmer organization, like being able to supply buyers consistently. So it was an issue of organization of young people to be able to identify and satisfy these markets. So we started the Champions Network to address some of these issues. We started this organization in 2016. And so when we started this, we realized, okay, how do we do this? So we put out call for application. We do this through district agricultural production officers, where we roll out call for applications and deliver these applications directly to district level. Then we go on radios, young people are sensitized about the program, they apply. then they come into the program. So when we select these young farmers into the program, we have been working with the Ministry of Agriculture through they have a leadership center for agricultural leaders, where we take these young people for mentorship program in partnership with the ministry. And we have been doing this over time, but of recent we decided to pilot financing models. And what we started with was to create a revolving fund for agricultural young farmers. And this revolving fund focuses on, we focus on asset financing. We realized, yes, capital is necessary, but since we are working with these young farmers on a day-to-day basis, and we know there are challenges. For example, they need machine Y to be able to add value. So we come in and step in and be able to get these machines for them. Then the young farmers can pay items we have bought for them. We have piloted this with 20 young farmers so far, and we could take on for purposes of enabling young farmers to access finance. On the market part, what we have been doing is to get potential buyers. Then we engage young farmers to produce for these available markets. Then we have been charging 2% from the profits of these young farmers for purposes of sustaining the organization and as a way of our sustainability model. Yeah, so and also the financing I was talking about, we charge them 3% for the money we give them for purposes of the revolving fund to continue existing. Yeah, so basically this is how we believe we are going to disrupt agriculture and enable young farmers to engage into farming where they can add value, sell locally, and export smart agriculture products. Thank you for now.
Thank you. Honestly, I was shocked when you said 3%, just because to get any form of like debt in at least that I know of, you know, minimum is like 13-14%, you know. So 3% is really good, like really, really, really good. So the next question I'm going to ask is, how did you get sort of the support that you have now? I know that you have support. How did you get that?
Oh yeah, in 2016 we got the Echo in Green Fellowship. Echo in Green is an organization that invests in in entrepreneurs who have disruptive ideas. It's based in USA, New York. So they supported us with around $80,000. This is the money we used to organize the whole models and start the idea and all that stuff. Then along the way, we have been picked up by the by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And together with them, we are coming up with champion models, champion mentorship models, and also testing and implementing them. So then we have created a lot of local partnerships with, we are even now having some discussions with banks about our revolving fund to see how, because the government has been investing much in banks to support the agricultural entrepreneurs, but banks end up following their normal interest rates. So we are trying to see how they can pull some of the resources into this idea, and we be able to implement it in collaboration with banks. So basically, those are some of the supporters of the financiers we have interested for now. Yeah. But we believe moving forward, as people get to understand us better and believe in our models, because I have always told people, when you prove that an idea works, like Alessandro has said, they needed to invest in people who are serious. Some ideas are really not proving to be worth. There is an organization, there is a funder who said they do not want to go with someone who is blind because they are going to fall into a pit together. So they prefer people who know where they are going. So this is how we have been attracting resources along the way, but we believe we'll be able to attract more. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomoya Bazi. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to start going over these questions. So the first one actually is for Alex. What was your experience investing in business, right, in other continents, and then compare that to Africa? Are Africans doing things right? Is there something they're doing wrong? Just because you have the different comparison sort of thing.
I mean, depends where we are talking about continents, right? Because if we're talking about Europe, we do very little venture capital in Europe. We do primarily private equity. That means larger tickets of 20, 30 million up. So that's private equities. We buy off companies, we fix them up, we sell them, and we are in for 10, 20 years. The US, we do quite a lot of pharmaceuticals. So, I mean, working in the US is always unique because it's the US and people tend to be quite particular there. So let's just leave it at that. But in terms of we worked a bit in Asia, and we do quite work primarily in Africa in terms of emerging markets or other markets. The thing I've noticed in Africa is that what's incredibly positive, in my opinion, is that people tend to pitch for ideas of stuff that they need now. Not stuff that they want to develop for 10 years, it's stuff that we need now, and that it can work. If we had the scalability, it could work tomorrow, which is something that I found incredibly new. Of course, there's always the disruptive technologies. We see that a lot, but I see a higher amount of things that we need now, whether it's public transport, agriculture, anything, to simplify life, make it more efficient, make people actually have a more sustainable livelihood. So that's something that I haven't really seen anywhere else. One of the biggest problems that I have seen is that people do not tend to look that far ahead. In terms of what I mean is people are not thinking that 50 years down the line. They're thinking 3 years. People are not thinking, okay, I'm looking at all these investors in Europe. Do I have already an investment coming from Kenya or South Africa? Have I looked at the neighboring countries? Have I looked at what else is here? I haven't seen that outside of the box thinking in terms of solving not the overall problem, but the problem that they're in right now in terms of we're looking for funding. Or how we go ahead. So that's one of it, because we see a lot of these companies pitching for money even early stage, and the usual answer is do you have any local investors? Because I'm in Switzerland, I can come to Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, Somalia, wherever, send me anywhere, I don't mind, but it's quite a big flight. I cannot be there, every day, and I do not have a local knowledge. I'm not a local. Therefore, what is vital is that there is a local investor, even though it's a small percentage, or if someone has 5% or just someone else. It shows that someone that is local has given you faith with their own money, and that's something that I find it very hard in certain companies.
Now that we're talking about that, Pearl is here and she is local. So she needs to tell us. She needs to tell us. Pearl, tell us then what's the problem with local investment? Why is it that you may find some companies secure international but do not get local investment?
You're saying they secure international but don't get local investment?
Yes.
I think the local market, let's say the high net worths, or the people who actually have money that they can invest in other companies locally, still do not see, let's say, venture capital or investing in companies as a viable investment option for them. Like if you look here in Kenya, what do the rich invest in? They keep investing in real estate. They just want to buy more houses and more land instead of supporting like the local companies. So there needs to be sort of like an education or an awareness amongst the people who could actually invest. That's what I say. But in terms of the other way, why local companies also sometimes struggle to attract international investment. Now the other side of the coin, it's basically because they do not speak kind of the language of the investor, how they package themselves. They do not know how to articulate their business plan. They don't know who their customers are. They don't know how their revenues are supposed to grow. They don't know about the competition and all this. And so the way that their company is structured may not be structured for venture capital investment. Maybe they can attract investment from their family or their friends or from banks. But for you to attract investment from venture capital, you need to frame it in a particular way. Yeah, it needs to appeal to the criteria that each of the investors is looking for. And you also need to understand the type of investors you are approaching. I think Alessandro kind of alluded to that. What kind of investor are they? Are they impact, like for example, me, or are they just private equity? They don't care about impact. So when you're pitching to both of them, you need to have kind of a different pitch here. And then also understanding their philosophy, what drives them to invest, also their culture, also their history of investments. Do you know other companies that they have invested in? What type of companies are those? How are those companies doing? And have you also talked to other successfully raised money and understood their journey? Yeah, and fundraising takes time. Even for us investors, sometimes you also have to raise money from other investors. It takes time, as Alessandra said. It's a marriage. It's a coming together. So people need to be very. People need to do their homework. They need to do their research, but then they also need to be patient and focus more on building the business, executing the vision, rather than spending too much time fundraising. I'm not saying fundraising is bad, but first of all, have a working business, and then continue the journey of raising funds. So that's my comment on that.
Thank you, Pearl. Thank you so much. I love that comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are also sending more things. Anyway, I think the next question I'm going to ask will be to Isaac. I think both Isaac and Isaac as well as Efosa can answer this question, but we'll start off with Isaac. What do you think about the ecosystem for entrepreneurs in Africa? Do we have one, right? So is there an issue with the ecosystem in the African continent? Does it exist? And if not, what should we be doing?
I think that I would say that, I don't know if you call it an issue or a problem, but the ecosystem is not as organized as it is in other places, right? Because an organized ecosystem would make room for, say, easy entry to entrepreneurs no matter where they're coming from, and make room for easy access to funding. Basically, if you are a young person and you go to, let's say, the Y Combinator, like the community they've created at Y Combinator, they basically allow anybody to flourish there, right? So a startup community like that, or an ecosystem like that, that would allow everyone to flourish, that has, say, experts who can really teach things. Because I see, for example, there are gaps in our ecosystem when it comes to expertise. And I don't think people pay so much attention. Everyone wants to talk about the funding. But when it even comes to like startup legal, right? How do you set up a business? What are the laws around it? A lot of people don't get as much training, and that is why they might not even be relevant for investors, because the investors think you don't even know anything about what you're doing. And if they eventually do get investment, they might be taken for a run because there's not training that. One of the things, like there's a barrier in metrics. Like if you're a startup, how do you calculate your growth, right? like startup metric is one of the things that nobody talks about, at least from my perspective. So there are some of these barriers in the ecosystem that I think that needs to be filled. So that's my perspective. I don't think it's a perfect ecosystem yet. And one of the key things that needs to be filled is that we need to congregate the expertise of different people so that they can capture.
Yeah. Definitely. Efosa, I think go ahead and take it away. And let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. And Isaac is preaching the gospel. I totally agree with what he said. I echo his sentiments. I think just by doing what we're doing now, for instance, this is our first pilot, and we had over 100 applications from Ghana. So there is a lot of desire, there's a lot of passion, but organization is key. I think the gap exists in turning that passion and desire into, articulate expertise so that you can package well. Because like everyone has alluded to, there's a lot of problems in Africa to solve. Like I feel like we're living in an age where it's going to be so defining, like the next decade or two, in terms of the problems that get solved. Because as Andrew said, there's things to solve now. But the expertise we have, the youth especially, like it's not like in the other parts of the world where you finish from school, you can get a great job, and it's not that hard to start off and not even plan to be an entrepreneur. In Africa, it's not a choice for a lot of people. That's the only thing you can do. So there's a lot of, the ecosystem exists in terms of, supply. There's a lot of people, a lot of passionate youth, but we need to do more in kind of organizing that, giving them the access to resources. That's what we're trying to do with the challenge incubator. So we're putting together an incubator. That's what Arielle does as well, right? In training people. I think doing that and even going before like they even get to stage one. So from stage 0, a lot of like early stage investors still don't invest early enough, in my opinion. Like, so when I say that to mean like, yeah, you're early stage, but you still want them to have what happens to the guys that don't have traction, that don't have anything but an idea? So I think there's a gap there, which if filled, help the whole ripple effect and make everything kind of work out in the long run.
I hear you. Thank you guys for that. I love that. Thank you.
I think Alessandro wanted to say something, right?
Alessandro and Pearl were both there.
Of course, I have something to say. Of course, I have something to say. I always have something to say. I mean, yes. Take it like I'm from Europe, so I'm on the other side, on the other hemisphere. If I already have to invest far away, generally I'm trying to look for stuff that I wouldn't say it's safe bets, but it's something that maybe I can take some money out or at least make the same money back, even though I'm going to lose money. If then I have to already bring it down to early stage, then becomes even more complicated because the likelihood and the risk becomes much higher. If I have to invest in the ideation phase, I mean, we try to do that, and a lot of the times you're just looking at people that don't even have a registered company. And then what happens then? It's a mess, right? Because you just don't know how to. I'm not local, so I don't know how to navigate the local laws of registering the company. Maybe they need the local coaching and all the extra support that I just cannot give them. Whereas if I come at a Series A or Series B, I can bring in all the coaching, all of the expertise, all of the international experts that can give them counseling. I can give them, further investments and international investments from other funds because they see that internet family offices have invested and etc. So it just becomes a risk issue. We just cannot tolerate that type of risk. because it's already high while investing in Africa, but you're already investing in Africa, far away, early stage and ideation stage. Then I might as well just, go to Johannesburg or Nairobi and set up my own accelerator and just do that full time. It's probably easier, right, rather than investing and etc. It's just the risk just becomes completely intolerable for us.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just my opinion. Don't shoot me down.
Alex, you're just you. I think this is for both you and Pearl, because someone asks, where do I start if I want to fundraise? I think also Tomoya Bazi can answer this one because he's also done this. So I want to get it from you and Pearl, then I also want to get it from a founder's perspective. Where do you start if you want to fundraise?
I think you need to know at what stage your business is at. I mean, like how mature is it? Have you started making revenues? Have you started making profit? Have you started expanding? So there are different stages. And once you know what stage you are at, then you target the investors that invest at that stage, because we all invest at different stages and we have different risk appetites, as Alessandro said. So if we invest early, that means we have a very high risk appetite because there's a high risk of failure. So first of all, get that right. And also I would encourage people to join the local startup networks, like what Isaac is doing, and the accelerators, the incubators. These are all people and other people that help businesses become investor ready. There's a lot that entrepreneurs are not doing in order to get themselves ready. And even what you're organizing like this, Edith and Arielle, make sure you get the right knowledge, and the right information. You need the right financial information. You also need legal advice, for example, because as investors will come and maybe throw some terms, tell you to sign a term sheet, you don't understand the term sheet, and then in the end, you feel like we ripped you off, but you didn't do your part by by doing the research. So there's a lot that entrepreneurs can do to prepare themselves. And from day one, just start documenting. I think Alessandro mentioned that. Start making your business processes as formal as possible. Make sure you have audited accounts every year. Don't just do things without records. Make sure you have like a breakdown or a structure showing how each department runs. You have an organizational structure. Just simple things. Make sure you're paying taxes from day one, not evading taxes. Small things you can do to build up to the time when you'll be ready to attract investment. So that's my comment on that.
Perfect. Who's going to go? I think Alex.
I completely agree with Pearl. I completely agree with Pearl. I think what's not paying taxes. That's very important. Paying taxes. What I think it can be very helpful, especially at very, very early stages, is having advisors, mentors, coaches that have been there or have done it before, or even know how to navigate the waters, and can tell you, look, you should be looking for this amount, or I can help you. Make them sign an NDA, kind of bring them into the fold that they can advise you and help you. And that will really help you the first couple of years, because you have someone, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing in terms of investor side, you have someone that knows or have done it, and you can just call them up at midnight and ask them those questions. And that's incredibly important at the very early stages, because you might just, especially at the beginning, if you do a very bad deal, that might haunt you down the line. And you never want to be in kind of an albatross of a contract that is gonna kind of chain you up for many years, and then while you grow, you're always set back by that contract. So you want to be able to navigate those water quite well and advise.
Perfect. Okay, Tomoya Bazi, I think now you can answer that, and I'll also give you a second question to also tie in there. as a young person that has a business idea but doesn't know where to start, what's your best advice? So while you're talking about fundraising, also talk about a person who's just at the idea stage but wants advice.
Yeah, thank you, Edith. Actually, that's where I was thinking to start from. Before thinking about funding, you have an idea, and you need to know actually whether you are ready for funding. And if you find that you still need to develop the idea, because most investors, they need ideas which are proven concepts that are making returns and are able to prove that they can scale their impact, so that the investors can move with them and grow with them. So most investors look at that. So for business ideas that are beginning, I think we need to think of how do I access an incubator? How do I get into a certain accelerator to be able to build my business model, to build my vision, to really shape my business into a viable business. Then from there, after defining your vision, having theory of change, designing your business model and looking at where you're having a business plan and all these things, then you can say, okay, now I need to start. Who are those people that can support early stage ideas? You look out, what do they want? Most of them actually, they will not ask for records, they will not ask for all those things. They will actually see your business model, your business plan, and will be able to risk and invest in you as long as you have a convincing business plan. Then if these people invest in you and you now start having records, you start proving success, now you can go for big investors who actually mind about is the business idea making profits. So to me, I think you need to follow different stages to develop your idea. Then at each stage, you know which which kind of support do I want. Then as you grow, because some business, they are able to fundraise $10,000, but you find in 2 years, some people can trust them with $1 million or more, which means they have been able to grow step by step and can attract bigger funding. So, but you find someone has just started and is targeting $1 million. Who is going to put that? You see? So to me, that's what I can say for now.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Tomoya Bazi. Now, the final, I think, question that we're going to do, any other question that comes after this, guys, we will just have to email over the response from the panelists, because I do not want to keep people past the time. This person, it's literally a paragraph, but they say, as a young entrepreneur that wants to open and run my own business, how do I overcome the mindset of the society that says, learn, educate, and get yourself a good job? How can I overcome these challenges and make it through when I am not getting the support and feeling alone in the process? Since all are entrepreneurs and have been through this hurdle, they can answer, especially to Tomoya Bazi, Efosa, and Isaac. I think I will answer you first myself. I would say that you, especially with how we have grown up as Africans, there's sort of an affinity towards get a job, figure out the hustle, make sure you get the cash, you get the money. No one really wants to support you, or rather very few people will support you through figuring out what you want to do. So I would say, like Tomoya Bazi has talked about, you need to get yourself into an ecosystem. And this is why we've brought people like Tomoya Bazi, like Isaac, like Efosa, like even us, Arielle For Africa. We're all here to support you guys at this stage, right? Especially when you're feeling like you're alone. You shouldn't be alone, because we are all here working to create ecosystems, right? We're here fighting to make sure that you have an easier time, you have easier access to funding, you have easier connections. So what I would suggest, rather, the first step, find a way to anchor on what any of these different companies is doing, right? Look at where you are, right? Who is most accessible and available to you, and reach out to these companies. They're all on LinkedIn. They're all on, they all have websites. Reach out to them and find a way to enter these ecosystems. Find a way to be part of the family. Entrepreneurship, if you try and do it alone, you will fail. And you will not fail in the span of 5 years. You will fail in the next 1 year. And especially with the upcoming recession, you do not want to be standing on your own 2 feet. Okay, and I leave it to Isaac, Efosa, Tomoya Bazi. Between the three of you, you figure out who's going to answer in like one sentence. Like, give these people advice. Okay.
I think, what I was saying in the first place is that, and it might not be as inspiring as maybe what you said. I don't think everybody can be an entrepreneur, and that's a hard truth. I don't think everybody should be. I don't think everybody can be. And you have to know, so let me give you one of the things that I think it would help you if you're an entrepreneur. If you're somebody who's just against the tide of the way things usually are, like you were resilient in school against a lot of difficulties, maybe you didn't enjoy your classes as much, you wanted to study your own things, you wanted to do things that nobody was doing, you were just a little rebellious, you have a high affinity for things that are challenging, you just like to build things, you like to start side projects. I mean, there are a lot of things that maybe will come together, but there are just some kind of people who have that, right? Some people just don't, and some people will work well in a 9-to-5 job. If you find that you are that kind of person, maybe stay in there. Because even if your business would eventually become a unicorn, you're going to find that you have a lot of difficulties you're going to face. And you just should be that kind of person that can withstand that. And some people can't. Some people just can't. And so you should know if you are that kind of person. Maybe other people will add to that, but that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I don't know if there's time to add anything, but I'll just add to be practical. Just echoing that. Just be practical. Like myself, I didn't quit my job. In fact, I haven't quit my job because you can still use your job to lead you to the end goal. So just echoing what everyone said. Even if you're working in a job, use where you are to work towards building, your end goal for what you want to build. Building the network, and you need to eat, you need to pay the bills. So I wouldn't recommend, like, if you can get a job and balance it with your entrepreneurial hustle, do that at the beginning so that you are not as desperate. And then, when you've built what you're building, and by engaging myself or, Isaac, incubators, Arielle, then you are not taking as much a risk because it's like you have a foundation and then you step into that as opposed to, the desperation. So that's just my 2 cents there, echoing what they said.
Perfect.
I wanted to say one thing.
Okay, say.
I wanted to say, I want to advise the person who raised that question that listen to your heart and do not mind about the stereotypes. Listen to your heart, follow your heart, you will succeed.
I love that. That is such, I don't want to add anything to that. I think now I'll just go and I'll close this off, guys. Thank you so much for part of this, for joining in on this. To all the people that are attending, I just want to let you know that as we continue talking about entrepreneurship, the Arielle family, we have an online program that's available to you. We start on Monday with one cohort, and then we have another cohort that starts in August. So feel free to join in to be part of this so that when you're talking about all these different challenges, all these different issues, you're actually in a class setting where we're going through things like that. Oh, thank you for that, Ferouz. So we'll go through things like rethinking your business strategy, having more disruptive business models, entrepreneurial finance, leadership and opinion literacy, which is more workshops, one-on-one coaching sort of support, social innovation, marketing and branding. And then after that, you'll have one-on-one mentorship and support from the mentors. So if you want to join the Arielle family, feel free to do so. you can go to the website for more. And also we'll be having a lot more webinars and collaborating with these amazing people amongst others. So do keep an eye out for that. And guys, thank you so much for being here. If you have any additional questions, you can always email info@arielleforafrica.com or go to any of our social media pages. Feruz will scroll down and show you. And you can take a screenshot of those details. If Feruz scrolls down to show us. If you want to take a screenshot of all of our contact details, it's all on there. So there's the Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as the contact information. So you can always reach out to us and someone will get back to you. So guys, thank you so much for your time.
Scrolling down, can you not see?
We can see the Instagram and Twitter, but we can't see the final slide. Okay, you're good. Perfect. You're good. Thank you so much, guys. We look forward to more webinars in the future. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any feedback, do send it through, and we will see you in
What about now?
future webinars. That's perfect. That's perfect. People can take screenshots. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the amazing panelists, to Alex, to Efosa, to Isaac, to Pearl, to Tomoya Bazi for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your lessons, your lives, and what you do. And just for
wait, guys, don't leave. We have to take screenshot of the panelists.
Okay, we're
so
here.
Edith can do that.
Okay, okay. Do they have their videos open? I don't think these panelists have their videos. Do they have their videos? I don't know what's happening. Okay, so I'm not even sure how to make it so that they are. You need to stop sharing screen, Feruz.
I did already. Yes.
Okay.
Stop sharing.
Okay, even you can switch on your video.
Yeah, but
well, you're recorded, so you can just take out a frame from a video.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
We all look nice.
Perfect. Okay, I got it. I got everybody. Thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll have future ones very soon. Thank you for everyone who attended. And I hope that you all enjoyed. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Good to meet you all.
Thank you.